Welcome to Mom Matters, created by moms for moms. We're talking about something many of us are carrying right now. Not because we're doing something wrong, but because home, work, caregiving, and community, let's face it, they all overlap. And many of us are trying to live up to expectations that don't actually fit how our lives work. We hear words like balance or perhaps doing it all. But for most of us, those ideas come from a time when roles were a lot more separated. And for many moms today, that separation just does not exist. So today, I'm joined by Shannon McGuire with Supreme Moms to kind of help talk about the shift in expectations and balancing and what in the world does this all mean now?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
When you said balance, I just laugh at that word because it's a polarity and a tension that you can only hold for so long. Physics tells us this. You get balance and then things get chaotic. But the separation from home and work in particular over the last few decades has become so huge and massive that we haven't caught up to it. Think about it.
Yeah.
You can work from your watch, you can work from your phone, you work from your car. Most of us are still working from our home in one way or another. So we don't have these separations anymore.
Nope.
So the doing it all and balance out the window because definitions haven't changed with the culture.
No, absolutely not. And what story, though, about motherhood are we measuring ourselves against when it comes to the word balance, right? Because like you said, balance doesn't really exist, but yet we still use the term.
We do, and it's funny because Supreme Moms denotes something for people. It either helps them lean in or they go, what? Super moms, not super moms. See, that's what it is. It's as moms and in motherhood, we're supposed to balance it all. What is the all? Well, today it's our kids, it's our spouse, it's the family unit, it's career, it's volunteering, it's being in the community, giving back. But there's so much of that creates this suck of our time. And we can't do it all well. We can do anything, doesn't mean we can do everything. And so motherhood is...
Or you can do everything, but not just all at the same time.
Right?
Yes.
Can't juggle it all at once.
Yeah. Okay, but why does the story, though, still have so much power over us and still pull us, even though it doesn't really match real life now?
I think it's because we keep reinforcing the narrative, whether or not it's through our shame and blame, because that shame and blame for what we can't do is still holding us to a standard and definition that hasn't changed. Our roles as mothers has changed so drastically since the 50s. Back when women were starting to go into the workforce, and even that word, workforce, they all need redefining, but it was different, right? So you still need to have the domestic duty, you still carry the emotional labor, you still are worrying and thinking and planning. But today with technology and with the number of relationships that we're managing, it's different. So we're still feeding into this narrative of motherhood that we have to do it all, we have to be all, or that just don't do mother at all because your life will be much better, right? So there's these polarity tensions that are pulling at us, but the more we feed into the feeling and the narrative that as moms, we have to do it all and we have to do it all well, we're going to keep failing, if you will, and not because we're doing something wrong. The system wasn't designed. Think about it. What are school hours? What are work hours?
Yes.
It just that out of the gate. So it wasn't, the workforce and the workplace was not designed with mothers in mind. It just wasn't. So we're constantly trying to fit into something that...
And what happens as we continue to try to force ourselves into this space and do our best to make this work, right? Make the doctor's appointments work, even though that they're happening during your work hours and while your kids are in school. And it's like, how are we managing? Like, what does this do while we try to force this to work?
It just creates more of the tension. And I get really passionate about this one because in motherhood in particular, we don't see it as the formative leadership ground that it is. And when I say we, I'm talking societally. We don't stop and go, man, motherhood is formative leadership. That's where you learn how to take control and make decisions and care for others. So that has gotten separated. And the more that we push that to the side and just keep looking at it as another thing that's behind closed doors, then we're going to put ourselves in a resentment cycle. And we're going to feel like we're constantly failing at being good mothers and being ourselves because the system just isn't designed to connect all the pieces of who we truly are as masters of making. Home, work, community, they all converge now. And We can't separate them anymore. So synergize more than balance.
Oh,
It's not about
Oh,
balance.
that's good. I like that.
Synergize.
It really is synergy.
Yes.
Okay, so how can we tell when expectations, though, are outdated or perhaps unrealistic?
When you look at your day-to-day life and how you're living your life and what works for you, and then you compare that, if you will, to the way you're supposed to show up. So, for instance, when it comes to taking time off because your kid is sick, it disrupts an entire system.
Yes, I just went through this. Thank
right?
you. Yep.
Everything from school to work to, and Lord forbid you go down, because you go down.
And I did.
See, everything fails.
Yes.
So then you start going, wait a minute, something isn't working here. I'm bumping against a wall that I can't break through. And instead of us bumping our head or fist against it, it's figuring out how to go around. And for those of us fortunate to take control of our time and our schedule and our work and have that flexibility, it's great. But when we don't have that, it creates this panic and sets into motion, again, a different sort of response from the system. Who's gonna watch my kid? Who's gonna help take them here or there or feed? Who's gonna take care of me? So the outdated definitions around motherhood, workforce, workplace, even leadership, I think those are coming to a point of a reckoning. That's the narrative flip. And I think it will help us recognize that the shame and blame that we do and the mom guilt that we have, when we're working, we should be with kids. When we're with kids, we should be working. I feel like that is where we know there's something wrong. Why are we so guilty? What are we burdened with?
What do you think would shift, though, if we stopped using the doing it all as a measurement?
Oh, I think we would start to feel better about who we are.
Yeah.
I think we would walk and know that as mothers, as those masters of making, as the bridge builders and the connectors in our family, that we would truly, we know that work matters and it's valued, but society will start to see it in a different way and value it. And we know things are valued when they're adopted, right? Stories shift, narratives change, policies change, and all of that, but we can't wait for that. There's so much beating the drum right now saying that as mothers, if we had more caregiving and childcare support, we would be better. Would we? Probably, but if we had more space to truly be who we are and design our lives in the way that serves us best, I think that would create such a beautiful cycle. And we see this when moms exit the workforce or the workplace and they start their own thing, or they start doing the thing that they really have been called to do, as we've talked about those creative sparks. But the conversation will shift from being the invisible labor load we're carrying and the domestic duties that are just compiling to, how do I want to make my life? How do I want it to be? And that's why we have things like, what schools do we want our kids to go to? Do we want them in school? Do I want to take a 9-to-5 job? Do I want to be independent? There's so many decisions we can make. There's choices, but we can't usually see them because we're forced into a system of just conformity.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm kind of like, about this one.
We hit a nerve on this one.
You
All
did.
right. Well, we're going to pause for a second because coming up, we're going to be talking about the invisible work that moms carry, right? Those parts that don't necessarily show up on a calendar. We're going to put a light on those when we come right back. Welcome back to Mom Matters. We started by questioning the idea of balance in a mom's life, right? I love it. And the story that many of us are measuring ourselves against. Now we're actually looking at what we're carrying in regards to mental, emotional, and also logistical work that often goes unnamed. Now, a lot of what moms hold doesn't always show up on a schedule. It's the planning, it's the remembering, it's the anticipation, it's the holding everything together for everyone. So Shannon, what happens when so much of what we carry stays invisible?
When we don't see it, and we talked about this in our last episode, the power of naming and claiming, then it builds and that can start to cause that resentment that leads to anger and probably some grief and then eruption. And next thing you know, you may have said or done something because you've exploded a bit and erupted because the pressure is just building. So all of those little pressures that are massive pressures are the carrying, the ideas, the thoughts, what's for dinner, who's this, I have to pick up, I have to manage, all the things we hold in our head and our mental space disconnects us from our heart space and the feelings. And when we don't couple the feeling with the task, then we lose something. We lose sight of our humanness, of I am overwhelmed. These are all the things. So instead of taking that overwhelm and listing the task and getting them out of our head and leaving it at that to start, we list and we start activating. We don't give ourselves enough pause.
Okay.
Pause.
The
right?
space.
Space.
The pause.
Pause.
But pausing can be hard for a mom.
It's hard.
When we're so used to doing. Why is that mental and emotional load, though, so easy to miss?
I feel like when I look back on history and how we've evolved in our motherhood family roles and the family unit, that the mental and emotional side was seen as weakness. Think about it, and especially women in leadership. You can't wear your emotions. You're too emotional. Be logical. We want results. We don't want to focus on the heart stuff. But there's a reckoning that we can't deny anymore. There are so many people facing mental health challenges. It's almost so ubiquitous that we all have them. And it's in response to how we have started to live our lives. Taking me time, mental, emotional time to consider the questions, the feelings is so important because it reconnects you with yourself and your heart, and also your power, your ability to make decisions for you and others in your life. It is the constant going and doing and doing and doing that detracts us from that power. Like, wait, I don't like this. I want to change something. So how do I start to change this? What is it that I change? Versus I can't do this, they won't let me. That is sort of the overriding narrative that I'm hearing from a lot of moms. I just can't because it's too hard. And was that by design? When we can't get our kids to school and from school in a way that works with the working world, at what point do we make that shift?
Yeah.
There's a lot that comes with that though, right?
There is.
A lot. So it kind of grinds my gears because I feel like we're coming up on 250-year anniversary of our nation's Declaration of Independence. And women are still, mothers are still battling. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And I want to talk, though, too, about this load, right, that moms have. The obvious that's on the calendar, the not so obvious that's not on the calendar, the planning, right, the scheduling, the anticipation. It can be overwhelming.
Yes.
Why do we, as women, though, buy into this feeling of shame when we admit that we're overwhelmed?
And I think it goes back to that whole definition of doing it all. You should be able to do this. Think about what your mothers did and your grandmother did. Think about what other women, it's the comparative narrative that really harms, because I may be able to get 10 things done and this mom may only get 3 of those things done. But what are we measuring against, right?
Yeah.
When it all is said and done, we want to raise happy, healthy kids that can feel good about being themselves and go out into the world and do the adult thing and be self-sufficient. But that's no longer good enough. We have to look good while doing it. Don't age, don't wrinkle, don't weight gain. Where's your career? What are you doing? What's your worth? I don't want to hear about you being a mom. Tell me how you make your money. Tell me why you're valid. It's so much competing, and don't even go to how you show up in community. Are you giving back? How are you giving your time and your money? It's
keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes. And is it the Joneses anymore? It's probably, I don't know. It's wild now. So I feel like the narrative script that creates the shame and blame starts with that comparison. What are we comparing to? Our worlds, I think we talked about this on an old episode when we stopped and paused and said, do we have it harder than the women, the mothers that came before us? And I think we do, because they could turn things off that we just can't.
They still had the ability to have a natural set boundary, right? It's the fact that we're so plugged in, and because we're so plugged in and so available all the time, we're expected to be on all the time. And there is no excuse now. There is no natural pause there. And so it's up to us now to have that voice, to create that boundary and say, no, here's where this stops, here's where I begin. Right? Which is a hard thing to do, especially when there's such a high expectation. Now, regardless if the expectation is put forth by society or one that we personally internally create for ourselves based on, like you said, the performance of others in our past, in our history, or in our present.
Yes.
Right? Who, because of social media too, let's face it, it makes it look like, oh, well, look at this gorgeous mom who is just so in shape, and isn't she beautiful?
Yes.
And look at how successful she is, and she has 12 children and grinds her own wheat every morning.
Bakes her own bread.
Bakes her own bread and gets her kids out the door, and one's a doctor, and and it's just like, oh my gosh. And I mean, those are all, let's face it, false narratives.
Yes.
They're not 100%
They're
of the
highlight
truth.
reels.
They're a highlight reel. And there's a lot of things that are not shared within those spaces too.
Yes.
So much like how I think over society we saw women comparing our bodies against, at one time it was magazines.
Yes.
Or
supermodel,
TV commercials.
remember that?
Yeah, the supermodels. Yeah, the invention of the supermodel. What that did for women's perspective, just on like body awareness, right? And loving your body and self-shaming and all that. But I could see how we're doing that as moms.
Yes.
Right? And in this day and age,
and a lot
in
of
this
it
space.
invisible
Yes.
too. It started to be laid bare during the social media time.
Yes.
Because now you have pictures and video reel of the perfect
Yes.
family and this and that. But
Oh, and look how often, look at, they travel every week. And we're, today now she's enjoying this and I'm over here. And it's like, oh my gosh,
my
stop
kids
it.
ate cereal for dinner. And
Exactly. It's like,
and thus the guilt, right?
And I was just going to ask about the blame. Why does that always become a part of the story? We're blaming ourselves and then we create some guilt.
I think there's this really interesting tension as humans because we know that we can create and we can do things. Technology has proven this. AI is out of control. We can create at a moment's notice. So we have this power that we know. And when we're not in the space where we actually implement it and do it to the ability that we could see, I think that starts to create a blame. So I know that I want my kids to eat more salads and juice and have all the healthy nutrients, but I'm so tired that we're having sandwiches for dinner.
Yes.
Right? And the guilt of knowing what I could be doing, maybe the should be doing, versus what I am capable of doing in that moment. And again, going back to the systems and how they were designed, they were not designed to help us thrive. They were designed to move us through. It's like childbirth. You go into a hospital, you have a baby, bye. It was not designed to nurture us and really help us integrate into life.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this as I work in systems every day, but in order to fix these things, we have to start with the individual.
Yes.
And the most powerful thing we can do is have this conversation. So thank you for opening it, because when we start to invest in our mothers and that formative leadership, we will see a shift that we've been waiting for. Oh, the day. The day will be here. It's coming.
All right. We're going to continue our conversation because next we're going to be introducing a tool that helps you see clearly what you're actually holding and decide what still makes sense for you. That's when we come right back. And welcome back to Mom Matters. We've questioned the idea of balance, which is an illusion, by the way. And we've named the invisible load that many moms are carrying. Now we're shifting into how to see that load clearly without trying to fix everything at once. This episode isn't about doing more. It's about understanding what you're holding and giving yourself permission to reassess. So, Shannon, first question. How do we start making different decisions about responsibility without adding more guilt or, most importantly, resentment?
Yes, especially resentment. That's the gateway to victimhood. It is being able to see clearly where you are investing those decisions. What am I deciding? Because we often give away our power and say, I can't, they made me, or this is just in response. By pausing and going, what decisions am I currently making? And that's a big one, right? Because we'll go to, how do I do that? Haha, we have a tool, we have a tool for that. But just seeing what decisions are already being made and the energy tied to that. Energy is just emotions, like energy in motion, emotions. And the feeling I always bring to the thinking because they're related, that creates the script. So when we can start to see what decisions we're making on a day-to-day basis and what that's creating for us, just to see it and consider it, not to go, oh my God, I have to change this right away. Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
And you had mentioned we have a tool for that,
Yes.
right? Yes. That's one of the great things about our conversations here is that we're providing a way for people to actually work through what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the Energy Agreements Recharge. And how does this help create the clarity that we're talking about?
Yeah, sometimes we don't have the right question to answer. We know there's something there. This is designed to give the space for those questions and answers. What am I carrying? So what feels heavy? What decisions? What are the things that I have to do? And then what am I sharing? And this is the one that creates tension, because in pop culture, we talk a lot about the domestic duties that we as moms carry more than the father or our spouse. We know it's true according to mass data, but that sharing, it opens up this ability to see, wait a minute, am I really sharing this load, or am I taking it all on, which leads to holding. What am I holding that I'm responsible for that's just me? Which takes you back to what I can share, and then what needs reconsideration. That's how I'll use me in this situation. I don't like to do that often, but when I moved to Idaho, I had this whole homesteading vision. I'm gonna start an urban farm, and I'm gonna stay home, and I'm gonna homeschool, and I'm gonna be an HGTV show. I was a SHIT show. And that's why I collapsed, because I fell into that narrative of doing it all. I needed to be a stay-at-home mom that was there for my kids and give them this best environment that was rooted in HGTV and Food Network shows that we watched. And all of that collapsed. And out of that, I started looking at how much I was carrying. And then what needed more sharing between my spouse, my kids, and then what am I holding that's just mine that I can take better ownership of? And then that led me to reconsider how I live my life. That's why I started my own thing and became my own employer. That's why I continue kind of crazily to homeschool these children, although that might change, because I realized what was most important to me was being a mom.
Yeah.
And a wife too, that it all interconnects. But this tool is what I developed to give me space to reconsider those things.
Wonderful. So this comes from very personal experience.
Very personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how can what we carry shift by season, though? Explain that.
Yeah,
right?
so depending on what season, there's literal seasons, right? Winter,
Yeah.
spring, summer, fall. But there's also the seasons of life. When we're entering new motherhood, it is a wild new adventure no one can ever prepare us for.
Absolutely.
Period. And then you get into this phase of motherhood where you maybe have school-age children, and I'm bypassing all the toddler stuff. And so you're like, I have more space in my calendar, in my mind. You may get to a season where you're dealing with teenagers, where it takes a whole
Yes.
other skill set. And then empty nesting. And not only who am I now, but who am I if I still survive with my spouse? So those seasons of change come with the trajectory of the spectrum of motherhood. And let me tell you, even with adult children that move out, it's still an ongoing journey of energy expenditure.
Yeah, and energy expenditure, but if we have support, that can help with some of our responsibilities. So let's talk about that too.
Absolutely. The biggest thing in support isn't necessarily saying I need another human. It starts with, am I loving me? Self-love is the first sign of any healthy relationship, because if I don't feel good about me, then I'm going to be dependent on others. And when they fail me in their humanness, then I may shrink back and not ask for more help. So self-love. And then, yes, support with like-hearted folks that are going through the journey. I don't say like-minded anymore, because I think the mind, we're so head-led. So, and that is so important. Do you have people in your world, your village, that you can turn to? And again, where you're spending your energy, please think about the people that recharge you versus drain you.
That's another conversation. Okay. Why is simply seeing it clearly enough to begin making different choices?
Yeah, because once you see it, then you can acknowledge it, and then you get to decide what to do with it. If you're like me and it just runs through the head, you may be on loop in that story or that song, and it just reinforces, again, a narrative that isn't working. I'm not going to be a super mom. I'm not going to do it all, but I'm going to do what I choose to do well. That starts with being able to see what it is that I'm doing, so I can get more to what will make me feel good about being myself.
Yes.
So gotta see it. Gotta see it.
You gotta see it.
Otherwise,
Yeah, we just keep spinning.
yes.
Just keep spinning. Shannon, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to recap, because today we questioned the story of balance,
Yes.
right? The illusion of balance. And we looked honestly at what moms are actually carrying. We also talked about the invisible load, the self-blame that can follow, and how clarity, not perfection,
Not perfection.
just clarity, is the first step toward change. This week is about seeing what you carry and choosing what actually supports you. And a reminder, you can download the Energy Agreements Recharge at Idaho Today or SupremeMoms.com. Check it out.